Let me introduce myself to you. This is who I am. No more, no
less. Sponsored by
doing something that maybe couldn't normally be done or nobody has taken an interest at. I like giving back to the ones that nobody wants. From here, Seeing the Need, Finding the Solution 2012. Where do we go from here? Mental illness campaign. We're talking about 3 different parts that are affecting our valley and people and citizens in our valley. Mental illness as it relates to health disparities that are associated with mental illness. We're talking about whole health, taking care of the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. And we're talking about solutions. And with that solutions comes a gentleman who is the CEO of People of Color Network. Welcome, Tomas. How are you doing?
Great, fantastic, thanks.
Tomas had kind of brainstormed after this year in reference to, we couldn't figure out a title for the show. And I remember on the phone with him on the weekend, and we were like, well, where do we go from here? And that's really what it is where do we go from here? We're talking about integrated health. We're talking about a lot of different aspects. But, for the couple that comes down from, say, Cleveland, they've never heard of People of Color Network. Give us a little background on what you guys do.
Well, People of Color Network is a network organization that provides behavioral health services to people who are challenged with mental illness or behavioral health challenges and other kind of complex health needs. We are now delivering primary care services in an integrated fashion in different ways, and so we're moving towards integrated health care as a network. We are contracted with our regional behavioral health authority, Magellan Health Services of Arizona, that contracts with us to deliver these mental health and behavioral health services in the community. We have a little under 250 employees and 3 direct care clinics where we provide services for adults who have severe mental illness, and a children's department to deliver high needs case management for youth and children who have serious behavioral health and challenges and complex needs in our community. And these are folks that are eligible for Medicaid. And our Medicaid program here in the state of Arizona is Access. And so they're covered through Access to receive those services that we offer. We also contract with a number of providers in the community. a couple of dozen nonprofit providers that deliver general mental health, substance abuse, and other kind of behavioral health services to the folks that are enrolled in our network. And People of Color Network is almost going to be 12 years old, and they were founded by local nonprofit social service leaders that saw the need to bring together an organization and create a network that focused on addressing health disparity issues for people of color in the community.
And when you're talking about health disparities as it relates to integrated health, explain that to somebody. What exactly is a health disparity?
Well, for example, a health disparity is when you have someone who's struggling with mental illness. And I mentioned this in several shows before, where 1 in 4 individuals in this country are experiencing a mental illness or have experienced mental illness at some point in their life. Now, when you look at those individuals that are struggling and challenged with mental illness, their life expectancy is cut short by 25 years on average throughout the country. And so that's an epidemic that's happening in our country, and people don't realize that.
And higher in Arizona.
And in Arizona, it's closer to 30 years. So when you have someone who's suffering with mental illness, whose life expectancy is cut short, and when you stop and think of 1 in 4, you're talking about probably somebody within your family, a coworker, your neighbor. You don't have to look too far with that statistic to realize and understand it. It's probably somebody that you know or somebody that's dear and near to your heart. And so this is everybody's problem. We all have to be concerned about the health and wellness and mental health of people around us, including ourselves. And everyone has mental health. It's a matter of how well is it, and do you take care of it? And when it's compromised or challenged, how do you get on that path of recovery so that you can turn that into living well?
30 years, what a difference between a child with a mother or father, or even an aunt and uncle. But speaking of passing away at 40 compared to 70. What a big difference that is. And integrated health, there's some other aspects that we pulled some stuff. Magellan, as you had mentioned, Health Services of Arizona, did a study with the health risk assessments. And they're talking about different stuff like diabetes, and 40 to 60% of those with schizophrenia were overweight. 75% of people who suffer from mental illness smoke, so obviously they're increased in that area in reference to 15% have diabetes and have an unemployment rate of 78%. Integrated health, explain what's going on with that in our valley. What's the goal, and what's that process?
Well, linking all these together and getting to integrated healthcare solutions, the part of the health disparity is mental illness and its impact and association to chronic health conditions. And those chronic health conditions often lead to that person life expectancy being cut short. So you go from the health disparity and understanding what that is and acknowledging that it's an issue. And then you go to, let's focus on the whole person. For too long, Phil, we have treated the mind here, the body here, and sometimes we address the spiritual component of someone's health and wellness and what that role that plays in healing and recovery. So now we're putting the focus on the whole person. Let's look at the whole person, not just the mind, because they're linked together. And if we look at the whole person, then we start looking at, well, what are some integrated healthcare strategies where we bring behavioral health and primary health care together and organize it in a way that we can deliver better care to someone to produce better outcomes at the lowest possible cost within their community, within their setting, within their culture, within their language, so that it makes sense for that person. And we provide the services that they need to live life well.
Question for you. I have the privilege, and for some reason God has us spending a lot of time together for the last year, and hopefully continues for many years to come. But you mentioned for the longest of time, it's been the mind here, the body here, and the spiritual end here, and being on this side of the table and as well on your side. How tough has it been to bring in the spirituality part from a political PC type of way, from being politically correct and not being able to offend somebody over here or guidelines over here, but so necessary in the element of recovery. How hard has it been to get that element across without having it be an issue? Well,
it's a tough challenge because it's almost like taboo. You just don't talk about that spirituality and the role that plays in the role that spirituality and faith plays in someone's health and wellness and their well-being, especially when they're challenged with a mental health issue or a chronic health condition or things that really test people's lives and patience and that lead to stress and anxiety and depression. And so, but if you think about it, you know, the 12-step recovery program is grounded in a higher power in that whole process. And so the way we focus on that at People of Color Network, we focus on the role that culture plays. And so based on that person's culture that often is linked to their faith or their spirituality, and how we use that culture to help them recover from a mental illness or a substance abuse issue or a chronic health condition, and then looking at even some traditional healing strategies in terms of holistic care and how that informs that person and that family on what are the best strategies to use to help them in their recovery. That's how we bring that in, and it fits in with our approach.
It's funny you mentioned about recovery and the 12 steps, and which I know very well. I come from a life of recovery and very blessed to have that a part of my life. But you know, one of the phrases in that element of recovery is we straighten out spiritually first, not mentally and physically first, until the spirituality part is taken care of. Then we straighten out or begin that path in reference to mental and physical. It's a spiritual disease in reference to recovery. One thing it always boggles me, I'm glad you mentioned it coming from your side of the table in reference to recovery and how that's mixed in. And it's amazing how many people, when they really, you go to any hospital, somebody who's suffering, you know, whether they're praying or they're sitting there together praying and all that kind of stuff. But also on your side, since it's has a federal aspect to it, there's a lot of funding that goes on in the legislature to, you guys got a lot of advocacy and fighting to do too for these people and our citizens of our valley. With a big sign on that thing that says, "In God We Trust." With that, my name is Phil McIlveen. We'll be back with Tomas Leon, CEO of People of Color Network, after these commercials.
There's no stigma or discrimination against the heart, the liver, the kidney, even the gallbladder. Doesn't even have a job.
Yesterday, depression was kept in the dark.
And bipolar disorder was your best friend's mother's problem.
But the tide is turning.
We're stopping the stigma.
We're coming out.
Our goal is to make the discussion of mental dis-ease cool and trendy.
No kidding?
Me too. No kidding.
Me too. No kidding.
Me too.
It's time we gave the all-American brain some peace of mind.
Living with mental illness is a challenge, but it makes me stronger.
Some would say I'm crazy. I would say I'm enlightened.
Some would say I have a disability. I would say I have special abilities.
Some would say I'm far from ordinary, but I'd say I'm extraordinary.
1 in 4 adults are affected by a mental illness.
To learn more, visit oneinfour.info.
I'm Jeremiah. I work at Chrissy Ski and Board in Lakeside, Arizona. These are very convenient for small cars. They get the job done.
Well, I always go skiing, but I didn't have something like this. Convenience, speed.
You have your kids in the back, right? But you're still able to carry your skis, carry your board, whatever you want. while still having your kids in back. Get it. It gets the job done.
Spend all your time waiting for that second chance, for a break that would make it okay.
We are 100% committed to preventing suicide.
To feel not good enough.
We represent 100%.
We represent 100%.
We represent 100%.
We represent 100%.
Oh, beautiful release. Memories.
But in addition, where do we go from here? We're going right back to Tomas Leon, CEO of People of Color Network. We were talking about integrated health. We were talking about spirituality. We were talking about health disparities, kind of all three in one. Tomas, before we lead into our next guest today, we left off with talking about spirituality. We talked about In God We Trust, which is what we're founded on in reference to money and nature-wise, in reference to that process. We talked about it's been difficult in reference to the spirituality aspect. Integrated health, what's coming out to the community that they can look forward to that's in the works?
Well, I think what you're seeing right now, Phil, throughout the country and here in Arizona is a transformation of our system of care. And integrating the behavioral health and medical and primary care services and that holistic care as well that incorporates the spiritual component in terms of someone's health and wellness and especially those challenged with mental illness and putting them on a path of recovery. And so what you're seeing is a number of models and approaches that are being created and developed and implemented and pilot tested. We ourselves are partnering with Magellan Health Services of Arizona, Maricopa Integrated Health Care System, our People of Color Network, Choices Network, Southwest Network, and Partners in Recovery Network. And we all are creating integrated health homes in our direct care clinics. And so where we're bringing in the primary medical care with our behavioral health services and mental health services together and other support services to enhance care coordination for the individuals that we're caring for in those clinics. And so we have been in the development phase, are now in the implementation phase, and it's exciting to see what's taking place. The conversations are changing, policies, approaches, how we coordinate care for an individual, focus on whole health care is changing, so our focus is changing. And the individuals that are part of this early implementation phase that are benefiting from this are really just telling us, look, we appreciate being looked at as a whole person, not just a collection of my symptoms or my diagnosis. And so it's an exciting time right now to be in that transformation phase right now and just really innovating and finding different integrated healthcare solutions to offer to the people we have the privilege of serving through our network and in the community.
And likewise, and in connection, part of Seeing the Needs mission and part of what our responsibility to do is to integrate for-profits and nonprofits together for the benefit of the community that have this same goals and objectives for each other. We were talking about a little bit of funding and different stuff before and legislature, and with that we're going to bring in Al Schaap. He's also the CFO of Seeing the Need, as well as partner with B2B CFO Partners, correct? Welcome, Al.
Thank you, Phil.
And I think I butchered your name. I think I said Schaap instead of Schaap.
Oh, it's close.
But we'll stick with NBA. That's a little bit easier up my alley.
That would be fine.
One reason I brought you on this aspect of it was when it comes to being a CFO, a lot of people don't understand the difference between a CEO and a CFO, kind of like an EKG and an EGG type thing, you know. CFO, for the normal person out there, what's the simplistic way to describe what you do?
A chief financial officer is basically somebody who helps a company, who assists a company, whether as an employee or as a consulting CFO, which I am, to understand what their business purpose is, what their strategies are. Helps to reduce the stress on the business owner by allowing them to focus more on why they went into business in the first place, rather than trying to do the check deposits, do the accounting, do all the administrative tasks. Part of my role is to get that business owner to figure out why they're not sleeping at night, because their stress, the stress that they're feeling translates to their employees.
My wife in the back of the show right now is going, why doesn't he sleep?
I have a whole series of questions that I generally ask clients in terms of, what keeps you up at night?
It's funny you mention that, because I did read some research, and you actually have on your website, which is a beautiful website, you can type in a zip code, say in Arizona, it pulls up 16 CFOs, actually 20, but some of them are from California and different aspects on there. But one of the things you had in the bottom right-hand corner is, if you're a CFO and you come on board with our company, let us show you what are some of the reasons that'll make your spouse happier.
Absolutely.
And elaborate on that.
Well, it's the sort of thing that, if a business owner has a question in their own mind, many times they can't go to their spouse, because that question, the answer to that question may be a very difficult one. Do I restructure the company here? What's my bank lines? They certainly can't go to other employees of the company, because that's even scarier. So the role that I will play, and many times I get that call Saturday afternoon, Sunday evening, where my clients think that I have no social life, which is probably more or less correct. But I'll get that call. Yeah, I'll get the call, from them to say, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And we'll go through the process. We'll try to figure out, what the ramifications are. If it goes to its logical conclusion, what's the success probability of that? Trying to deal with facts and figures and being honest with themselves, things that they may not be able to tell their family or other employees in the company.
Oh, wow. One thing I loved about working with you in the very beginning and I made a statement to you, and it's, I swim the shark tanks a lot with what I do. It's part of the process.
By the way, yes, you do.
And your first response was, that's okay. And it was somewhere along the lines of, I don't mind being in there. And I really, really like that about you in reference to that levelness and that backing. Mm-hmm. And as a CEO and as an owner of a company, I have the privilege of working with many different huge organizations that do lots of services, but are involved with very prominent people, people that are in positions of influence. And like you said, it's not all the time that your employees that I can turn around and explain to them exactly what all this means right here. So with that, I'm going to piggyback off and go back to Tomas and then go back to you a little bit. How important is it for somebody in your position to have a CFO?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, just in terms of managing and monitoring our whole financial health of the company, and monitoring how how resources are coming in, how they're being utilized and spent. And as a nonprofit organization, even though we're a nonprofit, we're still a business. And so, and CEOs of nonprofits have wives too, or spouses too, and we worry about those things. But the CFO plays a real critical role in the success of any business. And with respect to integrated healthcare and trying to evolve those business models, nonprofits that are moving towards integrated healthcare have to change their financial models, their business models. And so this is an area that also, we talk about the service delivery, but then, behind the scenes, it's the model of the business, it's the financial modeling, it's the strategies that you put in place, and payment structures and things have to change in order to be able to cover the services that we're delivering. And so there's some investment strategies that we have to put in place. And so the need for this level of expertise is really, really critical for the nonprofit community. Nonprofits, there's well over 20,000 nonprofits in the state of Arizona.
Absolutely.
And so they add to a significant they make a significant contribution to the economy and well-being of our economy, and deliver critical services. So I appreciate the services that B2B offers, and I'd like to figure out how we can connect those services to the nonprofits within our network so that they're well and they can keep delivering on the promise.
Actually, with some things we'll roll out, I'm going to roll this in so we can get this before we roll out, is a couple different things about B2B CFO. 5,000 fastest growing companies in the U.S. awarded the 2011 Blue Ribbon Award by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, awarded the ACE fastest growing companies. The only CFO firm in the new Wall Street Journal book. We have aligned ourselves with them in a multiple number of ways. There's going to be some things rolling out here where all three of us actually will have a chance to work together on some ideas and doing some things. As you can see on the screen, there is Al Schaap's email address and as well a logo. But more so than that, we bring them on. We're going to be, Al works with a lot of small businesses as well too. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is offering small businesses financial analysis as free to see maybe what can be done differently so your business can be more successful. 80 to 90% of charitable giving is done by citizens and individuals, not companies. So if the businesses aren't flourishing, then the people aren't getting jobs, and then the causes aren't getting met. And the more that people like Al, and the more that mindful people who run organizations like Tomas, the more that we all work together in being able to make those companies flourish, the better we're going to be able to bless the city that we live in, which is Phoenix. In this case, and ultimately the cities around us. Some stats we talked about, and Tomas had bring it up a little bit in reference to small businesses here. Yeah, we talked about the other show, $50 billion was spent on the Super Bowl, where back in 2009, about $10 billion. So everybody thinks the economy is going down, where if you look at that revenue stream, but did you know that 50% of charitable giving went down 50%? Where 50 billion, 40 billion higher went up to advertising. Seeing the need, finding the solution. I'm going to end it with this. When you got done with seeing the need,
yes,
honest answer, and we haven't pre-taped this, so I'm curious to know the answer.
Are you a little bit afraid of the answer?
We got about a minute left. If we could sum it up that quick, what was your overall view of mixing in the financial part with what we do in reference to seeing the need?
Well, one of the things as a CFO, I need to be part of the organization, and to blend in my skills with the skills of the company and the owner and the significant people within the business. Mm-hmm. Frankly, most of the time I'm not a creative person. You don't want your CFO to be creative, and your organization is ultra creative. And part of my role was to get the numbers to the point that they're real, that you can use them to run your business. And I was very pleased to see the outcome of taking the information. You've got a good staff, and trying to pull together all the resources that we needed.
Awesome. Al Schaap, CFO, B2B. Going to be coming on here some more. We have Tomas Leon, CEO, People Color. Now, 2012, where do we go from here? We'll tell you where we're going to go. Back out in the community, we're going to get some of that money back wasted on advertising. See you next week.